Bellator fighters. Love them, hate them, they are a thing. Or at least they were. With the PFL absorbing Bellator into their corporation, many of the high-level Bellator fighters have now left the PFL and have now joined the UFC or other organizations. Some of them had really good success, whereas others... Not really at all. And so this got me wondering, with Aaron Pico now joining the UFC, as he is one of the last major Bellator fighters to not join the UFC, it got me wondering, what Bellator fighter had the most success in the UFC? I'm only going to be naming 7 of the most, known Bellator fighters who have joined the UFC. And I'm going to be ranking them from worst to best on how they went in the UFC, how their run was, and most importantly, in my opinion, how their debut was. Now, some of these fighters are no longer fighting the UFC, so their rankings will stay as they are, but for the ones that are still fighting, guys, their spot on this list could potentially go a lot higher depending on how their next couple fights go. But for now, as of today, before UFC 319, this is what my ranking of all the big-name Bellator fighters are. Dead last for the worst Bellator fighter who have joined the UFC, Patchy Minx. Bro, Patchy Minx might have had genuinely one of the worst debuts of a fighter ever. Patchy Minx arguably had the worst debut of any type of fighter. And it wasn't against in fairness, it was against a top 10 level bantamweight fighter, but it was against Mario Batista. Mario Batista! You're telling me that you made Mario Batista look like Canelo Alvarez on the feet. How do you do that? It's Mario Batista, man. Come on now. I'm sorry. Listen, Mario Batista's going to be fighting Umar Nurmagomedov. Fair play to him. If he wins, that would be insane, but he's going to get smoked. But how do you look so bad against Mario Batista? A guy who just isn't, he's not a championship level fighter. He's a top contender. He is. But it's not the same. And the worst part about this was that Patchy Minx was, before he joined the UFC, he was regarded as one of the best bantamweight fighters in the world, not just outside the organization. Some people said that this guy was one of the best in the world. Some people genuinely said that. I never looked at Patchy Minx as anything too crazy. I could see him as being a top-level contender, but as a champion, get the fuck out of here. We got Merab Dvalishvili. We've got Umar. We have Jan. Corey Sandhagen. These guys would staunch Patchy Minx. Even a guy who's not even that good right now, like Henry Cejudo, who's on 3-fight losing streak, he would maul Patchy Minx. He would maul him so bad, man. That's what stinks about this one the most, is that the fact that Patchy Minx was regarded as one of the best bantamweights in the world, and the fact that he looked so terrible. He looked like he was an amateur fighter. No head movement, no lateral movement, just weird stance. He looked so stiff. It was so unbelievable to me. It was just so shocking of how bad he performed. And for that, for me, if I had to give him a rating, he gets a 1 out of 10 for me. Ben Askren, guys. Now, for Ben Askren, right? Listen, I'm not going to get into anything about what's going on with Ben Askren right now. He is a warrior for what's going with him, in real life currently. I have nothing but respect him. I pray that he gets better soon, but Ben Askren, as how he was in the UFC, at least he got a win, unlike Patchy Minx. At least Ben Askren looked somewhat decent in his debut against Robbie Lawler. And I would say that was still a decent Robbie Lawler, in my opinion. Robbie Lawler was on the downward spiral, but he wasn't, completely, a bum, at that time. He was still pretty comfortable. He was still pretty decent as a fighter. He could probably still beat a lot of the top 15 guys in that division. And for Ben Askren to go out there and almost get finished, mind you, he did almost get finished, but for him to go out there and submit him in the first round, that was pretty impressive. But the reason why he's so low down here is the Jorge Masvidal flying knee and the loss of Damian Maia. In those two fights, he looked atrocious. He looked so bad. I'm sorry. Damian Maia is a great grappler, and it was an interesting grappling match between the two, but he looked so gassed against Damian Maia, and the Jorge one, well, the only reason that Ben Askren is above Patchy Minx is solely because he at least got a win in the UFC. Patchy Minx doesn't even have a win in the UFC, and he looked terrible in his debut. Above Ben Askren, there is a guy called Patricio Pitbull. Listen, Pitbull, when he was at his prime, he was actually pretty damn good. I think the problem with Pitbull is the fact that he joined the UFC too late into his career. He was 37 when he joined the UFC, and listen, he lost in his debut, and he looked bad. But I will say, it was against a high-level fighter such as Yair Rodriguez. Yair Rodriguez, do not get me wrong, I will shit-talk Yair Rodriguez for the life of me, saying that he does not deserve a title shot, which it does look like it's not going to happen. So please don't let him get a title shot. It was a high-level opponent. Yair is still good. He is a good fighter. Like, he is a genuinely good-level fighter, and he couldn't figure out him. He just couldn't. Like, the way that Pitbull fought Yair was just completely wrong, in my opinion. Like, he's way too hesitant, in my opinion. He tries to be a counter striker, which is just not going to work against Yair. For another fighter like Dan Ige, it worked, in my opinion. And he actually used wrestling against Dan Ige, which also allowed him to get the win, because Dan Ige just, he couldn't handle Pitbull's wrestling. He couldn't. So while Pitbull did lose against Yair Rodriguez, it was against a top-level opponent, and he did get ranked in his next fight. So in fairness to Pitbull, he did look decent in his next fight. Now, this one's going to be a controversial take. I'm putting Michael Chandler at 4th, right in the dead center middle of all these Bellator fighters. He is dead middle. Michael Chandler, when he first joined the UFC, he looked good. Knocked out Dan Hooker. That's an amazing win, and that's aged pretty well, because now look at Dan Hooker now. That's actually aged quite well, in my opinion. And then in his next fight, he gets a title shot against Charles Oliveira. In fairness, he did almost finish him. He did almost finish Oliveira, but Oliveira was at his prime at this time. This is New Bronx, man. I mean, come on now. Oliveira was obviously going to finish him. Finishes him in the next round. Then fights Justin Gaethje. Looks good. Like, he does look good in these fights he's losing, but he loses. He loses in them. Then he fights a watered up Tony Ferguson, which in my opinion has not like been the best win of his career. The only reason why I give him credit is the fact that he's the only guy to ever put out Tony Ferguson, like out cold. He's the only one ever to do that. So I give him props to that, because he was able to put out Tony Ferguson. Nobody else has done that. However, his next 3 losses, Poirier, Oliveira, and Patty Pimblett, are just not good performances. Patty Pimblett in particular is the worst one out of them all, because now it's clear now that he's just on a downward spiral. Like, you could at least make an excuse that, like, he's lost a high-level competition. Like, Poirier, Gaethje, and Oliveira are all top 3 level lightweight fighters at that time. But now that he's lost to Patty Pimblett, and he did not look good in that fight at all. I mean, in the first round, he was able to get a takedown, but that's it. That's all he was able to do in that fight. Patty Pimblett dominated him throughout that entire fight. It's clear now that Michael Chandler is now in the downward spiral, and I think for him, it's better to retire than to keep fighting, because if he keeps fighting and he keeps losing, he will just keep falling down this ranking system and just get dead last if he keeps fighting. Coming in number 3, guys, I have Michael Venom Page. Michael Venom Page has so much potential in the UFC still. He still has a lot of potential, and I think he could still be a top-level fighter. It's just his style. His style is just so difficult for any fighter to figure out. Like, the dude fights, like, such, like, impossibleness. I know I just made up a word there. You get what I'm saying. But Michael Venom Page's, like, style is just so difficult for any fighter to figure out. Shara couldn't do it. Kevin Holland couldn't do it. Even his loss to Ian Gary really couldn't figure him out either. He had to resort to wrestling in order to beat Michael Venom Page. It's an MMA fight, so it's fine. But still, the point still stands. None of those guys could strike with him. I don't think Jared Cannonier is going to be able to deal with Michael Venom Page's striking as well. I think he's going to lose that fight. But you never know. Maybe Jared Cannonier is the guy to figure out Michael Venom Page. Until Michael Venom Page's like speed gets slowed down as he gets older and older, he's going to keep winning, in my opinion. Or if you're a good grappler, because that's really the 2 ways that you're going to beat Michael Venom Page. Either you wait for him to get slow, or you just take him down. That's the only 2 options with Michael Venom Page. And he does have good wins. He looks good in these fights. Like, it is quite boring. Like, I do think Michael Venom Page is somewhat boring, but at the same time, he's not. It's very weird with Michael Venom Page. He has wins over Kevin Holland and Sharipudin Magomedov. 2 decent wins, but I would give, like, Kevin Holland more credit, because Kevin Holland, I would say, is a more established veteran in the UFC and more established fighter just in general compared to Shara. The loss to Ian Gary did sting his career, but it wasn't like a terrible loss. Like, he just got out wrestled. That was it. Coming in second, a controversial opinion, we have Eddie Alvarez. You might be wondering, why is Eddie Alvarez not number one? He is an actual champion. He's the only one on this entire list who's ever won a belt. And you would be correct. Like, it is kind of strange when I first thought about it. Why don't I have it as number one? There are a couple of reasons. One, the way that he won the belt. Yes, it was against a prime RDR. RDR was really good at that time, but it's RDR. RDR in his previous fights, before he fought Eddie, lost to Khabib. He's lost to multiple fighters before he won that belt. And I know you can change and you can improve, but still, it was against Khabib, and we know how Khabib looked later into his career. And also the fact when he didn't even get a title defense. He didn't even win a title defense, didn't defend the belt at all, got absolutely staunched by McGregor. In fairness, this was prime McGregor. I will give him that. But then in his next fight, he's about to get beaten up bad by Dustin Poirier, who was rising up the rankings at that time. Then he decides to throw an illegal move on Dustin Poirier and then turns into a no contest. Then, in fairness, he does get a good win over Justin Gaethje, and this does age really well. Justin Gaethje beating him, that is a great performance to have, and the way he did it was really good. That's a legitimately solid win, but in his next fight, he then gets finished by Dustin Poirier, and he gets beaten up worse than his first fight with him. And listen, Eddie Alvarez was a champion. Me putting Eddie Alvarez number 2 on this list is going to be very controversial, guys. I know this. I know it's going to be controversial, but it was against RDR, and he then got staunched by McGregor, then gets a DQ against Dustin Poirier, who was beating him up in that fight, gets a win over Justin Gaethje, which is a great win, but then loses badly to Dustin Poirier in the rematch. So now you guys might be wondering, who's number 1? Who could be the fighter that is better as far as how they went in the UFC as a Bellator fighter? Well, it's a fighter that I don't think you guys are going to be expecting. That person is Alexander Volkov. Yes, I think Volkov, in my honest to God opinion, he had the best run in the UFC and still does. He still has a legitimately good run in the UFC. Listen, I know that's a bit controversial because he does have losses in the UFC. Quite a few. He does have quite a few losses. Those losses only help to improve Volkov. Let's take a look. So, in his first loss in the UFC, he loses to Derek Lewis. Now, in my opinion, that's a low-key of a fluke win. Listen, I love Derek Lewis. You guys know I love Derek Lewis. But Volkov was beating him up that entire fight. He just got careless by the literal end of the 10 seconds of the last round. That's crazy. Then loses to Curtis Blades. It's Curtis Blades. I will give him that. It's Curtis Blades. Then loses to Cyril Gane. It's Cyril Gane. And Cyril Gane was pretty good at that time. This was back in 2021. Then, unfortunately, he then loses to Tom Aspinall. That's not a good, performance. And he got some in the first round. But it's Tom Aspinall. We know how Tom Aspinall performs later into his career. We know how he performs. Then, he goes on a 4-fight winning streak, beating guys such as Sergey Pavlovich, Taito Ivaza, Georgino Rosenstrike, and Alexander Romanov. And then, the most controversial loss of his career. He loses to Cyril Gane in the rematch by split decision. Now, in my opinion, that is complete and utter robbery. There's no other way to say it. Volkov won the last 2 rounds pretty comfortably, in my opinion, and I just don't understand how the judges gave it to Cyril Gane. But now, Volkov is going to be fighting for a number 1 contendership against Jelton Almeida. Dana White did Volkov so dirty, in my opinion. He should be getting a title shot, even though he lost. It was a robbery. He lost to Cyril Gane. We all know this, but the point still stands. He did lose to Cyril Gane. But have you guys noticed something about all those fighters that he's lost to? I want to let you guys know something. Those are all against top-level guys, and 2 of them were former champions. One of them was an interim champion, and the other is the heavyweight champion currently. Those losses have aged quite well, in my opinion, and they were against top-level guys at that time, minus Derek Lewis. But the point still stands. Volkov, in my opinion, has had the best run in the UFC. And not just based off the names he's beaten, but also record-wise in the UFC. His UFC record is 12-5. As for a Bellator fighter, that's pretty good in my opinion. I think Volkov should be number 1 just because of that. Like, he's beaten a lot of guys, and he stayed in the high-level rankings for a while now, and he's only lost to the cream of the crop for heavyweight. I know it's heavyweight, but still, like, those losses that he has aren't, like, terrible losses. But, guys, that is me ranking Bellator fighters from worst to best. Let me know what you guys think about this video. Do you agree with some of these takes? Do you not? Let me know. I know this is going to be a little bit of a controversial one, but this is what I'm here for. I want to hear what you guys think. Leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Peace!